Hi everyone, welcome to our Leadership Lessons Q&A event series number 4. My name is Alex and I'm the Growth Marketing Manager at OfferZen. Before we dive into the session, we have some rules of engagement. So if you have any questions for our speaker, please drop them in the questions tab at any time throughout the session. We'll make sure to cover them at the end. We are recording the session as well, so you'll get the replay link post the event in case you missed out on any nuggets of wisdom. And the chat is open, so maybe just to test that that's all working, maybe you guys can drop where you're joining from, say hi. I see Carl's already said hi. Hi, Carl. Let's see. Wait for a few more people to type. I love a good shout out. Awesome. Okay, give it a few more seconds. There we go. We've got a few more highs coming through. Good to know that that's all working. This is also a nice buffer just to give some time for some late joiners to still join. Amazing. Well, welcome again to everyone that's joined. Please continue to say hi, drop your names into the chat and maybe where you're joining from. Also, feel free to share your LinkedIns. Again, my name is Alex and I'm going to be hosting today's Q&A session. Just a few words about OfferZen. OfferZen is a developer talent marketplace that was founded in Cape Town, South Africa in 2016. With OfferZen, companies don't just hire, they hire smarter. Choose to connect with top developers directly through our curated marketplace, or you can go premium with OfferZen Embedded, where a dedicated talent partner can join your team to handle the heavy lifting for you. If that sounds interesting, I'm going to just pop a poll on the screen now if you'd like to find out more. Okay. Cool. We're going to be hosting a series of these events over the next few months, featuring other tech leaders from top companies, both locally and international companies. We'll be diving into real challenges, career-defining moments, and leadership lessons that have really shaped these leaders' careers. That being said, today we're joined by Ronen Agranat, a senior software engineering manager with more than 10 years of professional experience, both from startups to Fortune 500 companies. Let me just bring Ronen on stage. Give him a few seconds.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Ronen. How's it going?
I'm fantastic, thank you.
Good.
I'm really honored to be here, I must say, and it's great to see the turnout that we've got today. It's very exciting to be speaking to everybody, and kudos to all of you for joining.
No, that's awesome. I'm keen to dive into the session and really pick your brain with all of your leadership lessons. I think we've got some really cool nuggets for the audience. I think let's start with a brief introduction before we dive into the Q&A section.
Great. So yes, who am I? My name is Ronen. I'm a senior engineering manager at Booking. I'm here in Amsterdam for going towards 9 years now. And previously, I'm at Amazon EC2 in Cape Town. And in between that, I was working in various startups, scale-ups, some of my own apps, some things on the side. So I have a variety of different experiences, which I hope to kind of cherry pick from. If you take nothing else away, I hope that at least you have a chance to learn something interesting, hear some amusing anecdotes, and maybe laugh at my pain.
I mean, can I say I'm excited to laugh? But let's dive in. Just to remind our audience, we have 3 kind of themes that we're going to be tackling. The first is journey from dev to leader. Second, the mess ups and the milestones. And then lastly, building and leading for the future. And again, to the audience, if you've just joined, we're going to have time for questions. So please pop them in the questions tab and we'll make sure to tackle them at the end of the session. Okay, cool. Now that that's out of the way, let's dive into theme number 1, journey from dev to leader. You didn't just wake up one day as a leader. There's a whole story to unpack, and I think a lot of stories and anecdotes we can unpack in that. This first kind of section is around that journey. So the turning points, the messy middle, and what it really felt like from moving from building tech to actually leading people. And as you've said in your intro, you spent over a decade building technical depth from startups to Amazon EC2 and now leading engineering managers. Was there ever a specific project or moment that really made you realize I want to lead rather than just build?
Sure. So just to address the first part of what you said, so sometimes I wake up today and I'm not a leader. being called a leader always feels a bit like awkward. Like my job is, I'm basically a manager, so I'm responsible for people. I do my best to take care of them. I'm responsible for delivery, and I try my best to do that. And there's a whole lot of obligations and work that one has to do. Leadership is like a really high bar. And I'll be the first one to say that sometimes I wake up and like I'm barely even an employee, So in terms of leadership, like, yes, like that's when everything is going really, really well, and the ship is sailing in the right direction. I just wanted to point that out because we've got some questions about this coming up later on, about imposter syndrome and so on. What does leadership mean? So I just wanted to get that out of the way right off the bat. So leadership is something that you do, and it's not something that you're able to do every day equally well. Having said that, when did I decide that I wanted to lead? So I went to University of Cape Town. University of Cape Town in the audience, so I'm from Cape Town myself. I studied there electrical and computer engineering, which was fantastic, and I met lots of brilliant people there, students, professors. I was lucky enough to be a tutor for a second year of computer science, which covers C++, algorithms, a lot of other stuff in there. And one of the major projects that the students had to complete was up to them to decide at the end of the year. So second semester project, they could pick from a list. One of the options was sign language tutor, South African sign language, because there's different dialects, I guess, or there's different sign languages, you could say. So out of the whole year, there are two groups who scored the highest marks in that project. And the professor who was leading that project wanted to turn it into a viable application for the Institute of South African Sign Language. Or I'm sorry if I can't remember the exact name of the institute. So for me as the tutor, he asked if I would be willing to be kind of the team lead during the summer vacation, bring the students together, sit with them in the lab, and we all would together kind of convert these two really good but proof of concept like homework style projects into an actual application that you could deploy and have people learning from at the institute. So there we were in the beautiful South African summer, sunny, glorious weather, and the view from UCT, I'm sure many of you know, is absolutely stunning, looking out from Jammy Steps over, I think it's Rondebosch and Mowbray. Apologies if I'm getting confused about that. And so while that was all happening outside, we were sitting in the very cave-like graduate lab and working on the sign language project. We were there for 3 weeks. And during those 3 weeks, we started basically from scratch implementing this thing. Obviously, we have the prototypes. And it was an incredibly gratifying experience working with these very gifted students. I basically, I made some decisions about how the project will come together, but, some of the students were much more capable than me on specific topics. We ended up putting this project together, which had video playback, video recording. So you can imagine it's like a tutor style application where you also get quizzes, and it films you as you're doing the sign language. Then it plays back your attempt, and an expert actually showing how it's supposed to be. And there was different kinds of quizzes. It was quite configurable. Two cool elements about it was cross-platform, so it worked on Linux and on Windows. Back then, that seemed to be really important, and now I'm not so sure that it was. It certainly made the project a lot more challenging. And then at the end of it, we did, so 3 weeks. At the end of it, we did indeed complete the application, presented it to the Institute. And it was such an awesome experience, leading these students and also coding alongside them, that I just knew that, hey, this would be a great thing to get into. This kind of team leadership idea is something that I really enjoyed, and that started to kind of put the seed there for me.
It just felt right.
Yes, well, it was very enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. And maybe speaking to how you got into all of the tech side of things, you're formally trained in electrical and computer engineering, and you've built apps, infra, and scaled platforms. How does that kind of technical foundation show up in your leadership today?
Yes. So maybe for context, my thesis at university was about reconfigurable hardware. So for those who might be interested, I was making a general purpose audio device that's implemented on an FPGA, and that's programmed with VHDL. And it has components to it, like, so it has a soft processor on there that you set up and configure, some custom like digital audio components that go onto the system on a programmable chip. There was various programming languages going into that. So obviously C, but then some of like the audio file management was in like Python. There was MATLAB for analysis. So like when you talk about like my formal training, it's like very much leaning towards, computer engineering, FPGAs, something that probably would be suitable for like SKA or like, radar or those kind of things. When I was in university and also before university, I was working quite extensively on different kinds of applications. So I was working with my father on factory modernization, making the UIs in Visual Basic 6, if you can believe that. Other kinds of projects that were like purely hardware based. But I was also learning JavaScript. And during my third year exams, for whatever reason, I thought it would be a good idea to learn PHP and JavaScript while I'm currently writing my exams. And, it wasn't the worst idea ever. So I learned a lot about JavaScript, and some of those skills are also very, very valuable. So I just wanted to mention that. In addition to those very technical skills, my course also covered entrepreneurship, professional communication, project management. And it seems a bit fluffy at the time, to put it mildly, or a lot of the students will kind of like poo-poo those subjects. But it's very, very useful once you actually get into the workplace and you're able to discuss about how a project should fit together, or you're able to like write a report. So I just want to mention that as part of like, I consider that also as part of like the full stack foundation, like especially these days, with the technological advances that we'll get to. But okay, how does it help me today with leadership? So in a nutshell, I'm able to lead from a place of actually knowing what's going on. So I can lead from a place of like, let's call it expertise. I'm not just someone who's there to support people, or someone who's there to hire the team and check that like milestones are on track. But I actually can challenge the team. I can give direction. And we know that this is what the staff actually wants from their engineering managers. And I know that because we ask the staff constantly. There's all different ways and techniques for doing that, and without irritating them too much. But we basically solicit for feedback from the staff very, very regularly. And we act on that feedback. So this is something where we set an expectation for the engineering managers that they are technically able to lead and able to give direction and challenges, as well as support the people. So being a technical leader, it positions you much better to lead significant transformation projects. These are things that would affect the way that the engineers have to work on a day-to-day basis. So changing the technologies that they use or the tools that they use. And I'm able to do that better because I actually can picture things from their point of view, or try it out myself. And then I understand the benefits and the challenges. Understanding it is one thing, and then communicating it is an entirely different challenge. So communicating it to the team, to my co-leaders. So I also have co-leaders in my job. So, I'm the senior engineering manager. I work with the group product manager, design manager, UX writing manager, and I have to support the directors. I also have to work with other senior engineering managers and the engineering manager. So all of this kind of constitutes like what is sometimes called like the first team. So your team of colleagues and co-leaders, which is a topic that I don't think gets enough attention. Anyway, back to the point here. So some examples of specific transformation projects are tech modernization. So at Perl, at Booking, moving off of Perl. This might sound surprising, but things like introducing code reviews at Booking, introducing automated testing, introducing service-oriented architecture, introducing APIs, separating the back end and front end. So there's a lot of topics like this, which are very, very advanced and like, let's say, industry leading at a company like Amazon. And other companies, you know, maybe they go down a different route, or maybe they're somewhere else on that journey. But these are things that I've helped to roll out at Booking. So let me give a couple of stories.
Sure.
Tech modernization. So maybe it's implied or maybe not, but when you try to introduce these large technical initiatives, there are some people who really agree and they get it kind of straight off the bat, and those would be kind of your right-hand people or your key people to roll out the initiative successfully. But a lot of people will be skeptical or have reservations, need more clarification about it. On tech modernization, there were two very key senior engineers who were handling different parts of the, let's say that they were handling different parts of the solution. The one senior engineer was very pro tech modernization, had made the service that was going to be central to the new architecture, was already under the impression that it was used widely throughout the company, which it wasn't, unfortunately. And the other engineer was of the opinion that this is a mistake, this is a waste of time, it's the wrong approach. We should use his library, which he's built in the old stack at the same time. And these two engineers were just like diverging, going in completely different directions. And it got to the point where it was a conflict. So what do I mean by a conflict? I mean, like, now there's some damage to the relationship. So they're not speaking so much anymore. They're kind of sitting and doing their own thing. So enter Ronen. And this was also one of the first things that I tackled as a senior engineering manager, was entering this conflict. The one person's on my team, the person whose technical opinion I disagreed with. So I agreed with tech modernization. I didn't agree with continuing to go full steam ahead on the old stack. And I need to go into the situation and sort it out. So I'm phoning the person on my team. We had just started working from home during the coronavirus. So I'm phoning him. He's probably not used to getting phone calls from his manager, I would imagine. We're discussing about it. I remember the one phone call, I think, was an hour and a half, where I'm trying to, just persuade him to touch base or find a middle ground, or, explaining why we're going in this direction. And then I ultimately need to sort it out. It's not like there's someone else who can come sort it out. These were the two key people, so that's one example. Another example on kind of same topic was an engineer who didn't understand, why couldn't we just keep doing it the same way as we have in the past? It's got us this far. Why will it not take us through the next 10, 15 years? Yeah. And this was linked to, I can't go into too much detail on specific people for obvious reasons, but it was linked to things like performance and promotions. And I had to really explain to the person, why are we doing this, and what would they need to learn, and what would we need to see to say that, okay, he's being a real champion and he's being an evangelist here and he's helping the whole company move forward. And he did an amazing job. So he did an excellent job with it in the end.
No, that's awesome to see. It's amazing how to see, like, from uni days, those skills and how they've kind of progressed, and you can see it playing out in the real world. So I love those stories. Maybe to shift gears a little bit, you have a blog. If anyone in the audience doesn't know, Ronen's wrote such great content on his blog. So if you want to go have a look at it, please go have a look. And you once wrote that excellent managers are first excellent engineers. Could you share a story where your engineering depth really helped you solve a tough leadership or people problem, maybe outside of the stories you've already shared?
Yes. So Booking once acquired a subsidiary called Boutique. The subsidiary once inside of Booking was called Booking Suite. I think this is all public knowledge. The startup was acquired from Seattle. A lot of the team members actually moved over to Amsterdam, which is quite interesting. I mean, imagine working for a company in Seattle that moves to Amsterdam, and you also decide to move with the company. So quite a commitment on behalf of those people, and kudos to them. So I joined as the team lead of the subsidiary Booking Suite, and the specific team was about the booking engine. So what's a booking engine? A booking engine is what you call basically you're checking out, you're choosing your rooms and checking out. And then you put in your payment information, you press confirm, and then you make your booking. So that's the booking engine. And that's what this team did. And the kind of unique selling point here was that it was a skinnable and customizable booking engine where partners could put their own colors, logo, typography, fonts, all that kind of thing, and make it really match their brand. And then the booking would go through Booking's mainline, like bona fide system. So the booking would be a booking, and you would be able to administrate your booking. You can phone booking customer support, et cetera, et cetera. So when I joined the team, actually, I think it was on the first day, I was pulled into a meeting about something called payment errors, which is a topic that I would learn a lot about during the next year.
Sure.
So long story short, once we got some dashboarding in place, it turned out that more than 20% of attempted bookings were actually failing at the last step. So imagine going through an entire checkout form that consists of maybe 3 pages. You press book, and then you get just an error, unable to complete booking, or some other kind of similar error. So the team had a few big ones of these and many small ones. And the team was in general very demoralized about this subject. And I just want to say that this was an excellent team. So this was a team that was, by all other measures, high performing, great vibe, having fun together, delivering lots of stuff. And they were very demoralized about this specific issue. So obviously the part, it's called partner support, because we're talking about hoteliers who are buying this product and putting it on their website. So the support for the hotel owners was furious about this, of course, because they're getting constant inbound from the hoteliers that their customers are getting payment errors, and especially when they would try it themselves and, for example, not ever to be able to complete a booking. So it looked like in some cases, for whatever reason, the confluence of different factors would prevent a successful booking from ever going through. Maybe the card type, for example, or the specific payment method. So what did I do? I put all the errors through the same error handling flow. So if something goes wrong, we know about it in the same place. It's one file. You can see exactly, you basically are getting all your error traffic through one single point there. So we have all the errors flowing through the one code path. And that is causing dashboarding to happen, metrics to be emitted. We set up alerting on that, and logging, of course. So based on that, we put the dashboarding in place. And now we're kind of able to see, the trees for the wood. So now we can see, okay, this is our stack rank of the biggest errors that are happening. And we can now tackle them methodically. So some of the errors were fairly straightforward and the team members could pick it up. Other ones were scary for various reasons. Maybe it was the team had just got frustrated with it, or it required stakeholder management. And then I would pick it up, and try to break the back of it. And so based on this, we started to really get a better idea of what was going on. Eventually, we pared down the errors that were happening, and then I noticed that a lot of errors seemed to be happening for kind of no really good reason on the credit card form. And so I rewrote that. So I rewrote the credit card form in React. I would say that I did it in a short amount of time, but then to get it to production took a lot longer, right? So proof of concept in a day or two, and then some poor senior person, working with me to get it into production for the next month. And we ultimately got that error rate below 1%. So this was a project that went on for about a year. And by the end of it, I was in charge of all 3 of the related teams. And I actually wasn't coding that much by the end of it. I also put the strategy together here, which was stop starting and start finishing. It's a bit of like a Dr. Seuss tongue twister. But basically, the lesson there was about, you can get a lot more done if you can be clear about what you want to achieve and break it down and prioritize it, fan it out across the teams and people. And there's a lot of value in fixing what is currently broken before building on top of it and adding more and more and more features.
No, I love that. And I think it's a great expression of how you've zoomed in and had that technical element, but also zoomed out to focus on the strategy, protect your team from other stakeholders and the people shouting from the other teams. So it's a great example. I'm conscious of time because I think we've got so much to dive into. If you could maybe send a message to your junior self, what's one insight that would have helped you grow with more intention?
There's so much I would change, but the one thing I would pick is focusing on people and relationships, especially now that I've started with my own consulting. So I basically sit behind my, like, it's called your leads, like your sheet, and that's your entire network that you've made over your career. And I realized that I've worked with all of these brilliant people over the years, but I've not spoken to this person who was my good friend for several years, and I've not kept up with this other person who really helped me in my career. So really putting a lot of effort into those relationships, making sure that you nurture them. And then when it comes to like the team environment, making sure that you're a great teammate, someone that people would really want to work with again in a heartbeat. And it's not about being like Mr. Nice Guy all the time, which is a really dangerous thing to do, actually. It's a very bad political strategy. But being empathic, being a human, speaking to people like they're adults. Yeah. So it's interesting because a lot of people from Cape Town are now in Amsterdam, like a surprising number. So also, Alex, I discovered you're in Amsterdam also. So it's a really, really small world.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know who you're going to bump into along the way. So network is super important. Maybe looking back at your first step into management, what did you wish you knew? Were there any blind spots around team dynamics or delegation that hit you by surprise?
Yes. So when you become a leader, when you become a manager, you get the title. And you get this idea that now what you say goes. But it doesn't work like that at all. It's even more important to bring people along with you, like your leadership team, the first team I was talking about earlier, as well as the individual contributors on the ground. In the beginning, I would get very excited or maybe feel under pressure, or maybe I feel like I just had the best idea ever, and I would whoop here and whoop there and pull people into projects and spin things up and shut things down. And this is a very dangerous way of operating, because people do not like feeling like decisions are being made without their input, making decisions in isolation. Look, sometimes it's necessary. Like, you do have the leadership mandate to make decisions where needed, but it should be the minority case. So the biggest lesson that I learned is to include especially the leadership team into major decisions. Yeah, I got into a conflict with my group product manager, my first one that I worked with, which is a pity because he was absolutely brilliant. I really admired him. And now what I do differently is I really seek to build alignment. So you try to pull everyone on the same page as you, try to make sure that everyone's reading from the same songbook, singing from the same songbook, as it were. And if there are disagreements, talk about the disagreement. It's not a person to person thing. It's like a person to the issue to another person. You get the idea. So take the issue, not hard on the issue, soft on the person, basically.
I love that. I feel like we should put that as a quote for the event.
That's not my quote. It is a quote from somebody.
We'll have to find out who actually said it. So maybe linking to that, imposter syndrome hits a lot of new leaders. Was there a moment where you questioned if you were manager material, and how did you work through it?
As I mentioned earlier, this happens. This happens. Sometimes you wake up and you just, sometimes I wake up and I think, how am I going to get through this day? I've got a tough meeting with a top skip level. I need to present something at like a quarterly business review. And it's not necessarily something that you look forward to all of the time. Yeah. So this is a reality of the job. So it's best to acknowledge and make peace with the fact that it is a tough job and give yourself a break. Yeah. You do need to really want to do this. It is not a very strong motivator to do it for reasons like, remuneration, or because you're seeking power, or because you want to be the one in charge. That's going to be very difficult. That's going to be scant a solace if you're going through a very difficult time. You need to really love it, and you need to be wanting to do it because you really enjoy the work. So there's a lot of resilience needed. What I would do a lot in the beginning is meditation, prayer. Another piece of advice that can really help take the load off is what I was talking about earlier. So if you're working with your leadership team and including them in the decisions, that also can give you more confidence in the direction that you're taking, or let you know if you need to course correct. And a really important tip is to get as much feedback as possible from people that you trust. At the end of the day, sometimes you just need to take, this is an advice I got, is sometimes you just need to take a deep breath and just do what needs to be done. Yeah, so I've been doing boxing for like a few months. My boxing coach says, just do it, you won't die. You know? I also used to be very into long distance running, and there's like a technique when you are in the, I don't know, 2 oceans or something like that. Not that I was ever very good at any of these things, don't get me wrong, but you just focus on the next step. Like there's only one step in the race, the next one. You just put the next foot forward and the next foot forward, and you just get through it, you know. And over time, there is this curve about going from like unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence. You kind of progress along the curve in a kind of haphazard manner, and then that's the learning curve that you go through, and it gets easier, you know.
Yeah, so be kind to yourself, feedback loops, breathe. Good summary. Okay, awesome. I'm keen to move on to the next theme. I think there's some really nice stories to unpack around the mess ups and milestones. So I'm keen to chat a bit about the bumps and breakthroughs along the way in your journey. You've talked on your blog about rebuilding a management team twice. What went wrong the first time, and how did that shape what you did differently the second time?
Yes. So I can't go too much into detail on this one, like mentioning company or specific people or those kind of things, but it's a bit of a sensitive topic, as you can imagine. But what I would refer to here is the Amazon leadership principles. This is a great resource, by the way. I can recommend to look up Amazon leadership principles. One of them is hire and develop the best. I basically did not do fully my homework in hiring the management team, which is on me, right? It's not always about the person, it's also about the seat. So that's why we talk about fit. You know, it might be a great person, but in the wrong spot at that time, you know? So this falls with me, not with anyone else. And I just want to, you know, be clear about that. So anyway, hire and develop the best. So at Amazon, they're looking to hire pretty much like the top 1% of engineers, which means you can expect to interview about 100 people before you make one hire. Maybe this has changed. Feel free to have the chat to correct me. Another principle is every person you hire should be better than the existing 50%. Sure. And what that means is that the bar goes up and up over time. So a few quick tips. So one, do the background research. You have to actually, it's not enough just like having the phone number for the referral, you know, phone them, speak to their previous managers, speak to their colleagues, you know, search for them on Google, you know, look through their material, treat it like a research project. The second thing is, and this is, very important. And sometimes you feel that you are being forced to make a hire. Maybe top down, maybe you just feel like you can't cope with all of the scope on your own. You just need to bring in someone. Do not ever feel under pressure to hire, not from your boss, not from HR, not from your own workload. It's better not to hire someone than to hire the wrong person, especially when you're already under pressure.
Yeah.
The third thing that I want to mention is think of the person, not just the need that you have today, because the need may come and go. You know, there are all sorts of external factors, internal factors. I mean, look at the world over the past few years. It's like we're facing a major a sea change, like a paradigm shift every few months, it seems like, and it's only increasing in speed. So when you're hiring, look for some things that are, you know, kind of immutable, like let's say, so, you know, looking for intelligence, someone who's conscientious, and also someone who wants to be in you know, in the team with you.
Yeah.
And the best way to make a decision is to actually watch them do the job. We do have this thing usually in South Africa also, as far as I know, there's a probationary period. I know it sounds harsh, but you should use it. Like set clear expectations for what you're wanting to see from the person during that probationary period. Yeah, I won't say too much more about that because I think it may be a bit like, maybe it sounds distasteful or something like that. But the best predictor is watching someone do the job. Ideally, you know, we can do that in an internship role, but it doesn't apply so much to a management position.
it's also great because it gives them 3 months-ish to also feel out the role themselves and whether it's a good fit for them. So there is a benefit to both sides, the employer as well as the employee. Awesome. I'm keen to dive into some of your stories, maybe more on the failure side. Can you share a story of misstep or failure? What happened? How did you recover? And what lasting change came from it?
Sure. So I took on a team, a very important team in booking. I won't mention which one it was, of course, for the people and so on. But the EM was already under a lot of pressure. And I could tell that something was wrong because I reached out to them. Hey, I'm your new boss. Let's meet up. Let's have a chat. Let's find out what's going on. I'll introduce myself. You introduce yourself. And no response. And you reach out again the following day. No response. Okay, I put a meeting on the calendar. Canceled. So we're smelling smoke, right? Something here is burning. So my mistake here was that I took that personally. I let my ego get in the way. A big piece of advice I have is that you really need to check your ego at the door in this role. It really only gets in the way most of the time. I took it personally, and it started to become like I started to treat it as a performance issue. If this person is not able to gather requirements, they're not able to give updates in a timely fashion, so on and so forth, which was completely the wrong approach. So actually, this is a fairly normal situation when you take on a new team or a new area. It usually is, to some extent or another, on fire. Otherwise, they wouldn't need you, right? That's what they're hiring you for. So instead of being quick to judge and quick to, jump into confirmation bias, because once I started thinking this way, then everything I saw was just reinforcing my pre-existing. And actually, the person was really good. So it was, again, it's reflecting on me only. So instead of, joining and being very rah, when this happens now, which it still does happen, and it just happened to me again a couple months ago, you treat it with as much empathy and understanding as possible. It's unlikely that an immediate intervention is needed from you. They've been working in this configuration for some time, probably, unless you're aware of something really specific that needs to happen. Give the person a chance to kind of get some breath. And, discuss with them what you're observing. So you do need to give the feedback, but give it from a place of empathy rather than from judgment. And what can I do to support? So in a recent example, the person asked for just really clear expectations. I need to do, it would be like them and their team need to do X by Y time. And, these are who they can speak to for support. And keep that to an absolute minimum until they kind of catch their breath. And then you can dive into more like, okay, so we see that, obviously it's been a bit challenging and so on and so forth, and take that conversation further.
Oh, thanks for sharing that story. What's something you only learned by getting it wrong once or more than once?
How to say no. I'm lucky enough to, I've been lucky enough to work with many great group product managers. And one I worked with recently, and I still work with him, was an expert at saying no. So I said to him, I need to get better at this. I notice that people don't like it when I say no to them. Okay, that's like quite normal that people don't like it when you say no. But he was such an expert at doing it, because you would kind of, as the person making the request, you would start to get in response a few like very targeted questions. He would say, I believe conflict is a good thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing to have a conflict around the issue. And I'm curious about where this conflict is coming from. So he would just want to understand a bit better about the ask. And so that's how he would raise his reservations and his concerns about it until it would the line of questioning would kind of resolve in, okay, we're not able to help with that right now. So he was a master at that. And so for me, there is a minimum amount of engagement that you need to do on every request to make sure you understand it. Just put in the effort to make sure that all possibilities to accommodate it have been requested, or otherwise the person understands where your reservations are coming from and you collaborate them to try to get to a yes.
often people just want to be heard, even if you can't factor it in right now. They just want their request to be heard. What's a milestone you're especially proud of, whether technical, managerial, or cultural, and what made it meaningful to you?
So something that was really amazing to see was one of my mentees. So at Booking, we have this amazing mentorship program called Be Champion, and it's specifically there to support women in particular. And I was a mentor for that. So the topic of mentorship was around becoming an engineering manager. So a person was a senior engineer, and then they got that caretaker role, I think start of this year or end of last year. So actually stepping into the role that I was mentoring them about, which is just so amazing to see. It's really a wonderful feeling.
Oh, no, that's amazing. Congrats to her. Cool. I'm keen to move on to theme number 3, building and leading for the future. So zooming out a little bit and looking ahead, it's not just about what you've done, it's about what you're building next. You've coached and developed multiple engineering managers. What specific approaches have helped you nurture leadership in others most effectively?
Yeah, so I have a blog post about this, and on reviewing it, I see that there's quite a few things that I wrote in there. So just to run through it quickly. So first, you have to be able to identify the potential. So see when people, are about ready to be stepping up. And you can notice that based on direct observation or feedback. Maybe they're great at breaking down ambiguous tasks. Maybe they bring forward, really high impact projects. Or maybe they are instrumental in developing people around them. So all positive signs. Then once you can see that they have the potential, it's about working out, do they actually want to grow? So it might be surprising to learn that a lot of people don't. I also, at one stage in my career, I was like, okay, I've been trying for a while to become a team lead, and it just wasn't happening. And you kind of park it for a little bit. So that's just an example of how someone can become a little bit demotivated. And then you try and inspire that motivation into them. Why don't they want to grow? But you seem like you'd be really strong at this. Do you know how much more impact you could have, or how much you could help people, depending on what motivates them. Okay, once you get to the point where you've got someone with the potential and motivation, now it's about a plan. So a plan is fairly structured. Ideally, it has like a timeline and an outcome that you want to achieve. The most important thing is to feed tasks. So it's called assignmentology, matching work that is impactful. So work that really matters and that will cause the person to succeed or fail on their own merit. But giving it to them in a way that's manageable, that they really do have enough support to get it done. And then supporting them through it. So what are their challenges? How can you help coach them through the various obstacles that they might have, or what resources can you as a manager bring forward to remove blockers or problem solve?
No, I love that. And thanks for giving a quick summary of that blog post. We'll have to find it and share it with the audience. I can imagine leading through rapid change is tough. A lot's been happening in the last couple of years in the world. Can you share an example of a time your team faced shifting priorities or uncertainty, and how did you keep them grounded?
Yes. So I wanted to mention at some point that I think it's only right to mention that Booking is currently undergoing restructuring. And, perhaps I have my own team members on this call or other colleagues from Booking. And I just wanted to acknowledge that it's a very difficult time at Booking right now with the restructuring that's happening. And just to be sensitive to that, okay? Because it would be, I don't feel right going through a whole talk and not mentioning that. So it's a tough time, but we're all in this boat together in case there is someone that's meaningful for on the call. So having said that, yes, there is change happening now. There is often a change that we were speaking about earlier. The biggest challenge, other than the current day, was when the pandemic happened. So I had just been promoted to senior engineer. It was a manager of software development at the time. So I had just been rehired into that role. I was in a meeting with the directors, and my colleague said, this COVID thing, maybe we should do a drill with people working from home. And the directors were like, that's a great idea. When do you want to do it? Oh, maybe next week. No, we need to do it tomorrow. And so then from then on, we pretty much were working from home. So it was an enormous challenge right at the beginning of my current role that I've got. So for change management, there's a lot of theory and psychology that goes into it. But basically, just keeping it simple, share as transparently as you can everything that you know. If you can't share it, don't share it. But you can say, actually, I do have information, but I can't share it for whatever reason. People want as much emotional support and stability as possible. So where it is possible to keep things stable, give it to them. Just be there to listen. A lot of the time, people just want to be heard, like what you were saying. People might want to vent, or they might need to get things off of their chest and just speak about it and know that you're kind of on their side and you've got their back. The other thing is to take care of yourself. So if you are not in a good state, you obviously can't help other people anymore. So you also, even though it sounds maybe counterintuitive, it's a bit like on the airplane with the mask coming down when the cabin depressurizes. Put on your own mask first. If you're not in a good state, many people around you will suffer because of that. So yeah, make sure to take care of yourself also.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. Okay, what would you say is your leadership North Star, a principle that helps you choose clarity when the path gets messy? And we know it does.
Yes. So there is a yin and yang about, and I know I'm not pronouncing that correctly, so apologies about that. But there is a balance between delivering for the customer and having a people-first approach for your team. Okay, those two things can be in opposition to each other, but they don't need to be. The principle that I have is I am building the team, which is building the product, which is going to do amazing stuff for the customer. So it's kind of like the meta game. It's like the level of indirection. If you can imagine that, maybe it's not the nicest analogy, but imagine that you are a puppet master, right? So you are controlling a puppet. Your puppet is also controlling a puppet. And that puppet is working in their IDE and pushing changes to production. So you have a few levels of indirection. And so you need to think strategically, and you need to be working through other people to deliver the results. And that's basically it. So you're building the team to build the product which does the stuff for the customer and gives them a great experience.
Awesome. What skill or mindset do you think every future tech leader needs to start building now? How do you help your own team build it?
So the obvious answer here is AI. So we are full steam ahead with AI. I'm full steam ahead with AI myself. So I'm trying to pivot as much as possible to this topic. What I do at work is I talk about it as much as possible. I advocate for, if you are working on something, think, how could you be doing this first with AI? If you are, and it could be anything, right? Like it could be coding, but it also could be a presentation that you need to give, or it could be documenting the code base. We're having a lot of success with those approaches also. So when I am working myself, I try to use AI, and then I try and model that. So I'll send out a survey, as I do often, and I'll say, this survey was generated with AI, and here's the prompt, and this is the model that I used and why I used it. So just try and make it be really visible and exhibit the behavior, and people will model it.
Yeah, I think talking about it is the biggest thing, like sharing how you're playing with what you're learning, so to encourage others to also do it as well. Yeah. Maybe just to end off this section before we dive into audience questions, looking ahead, what's your next leadership aspiration? More impact, broader teams, deeper mentorship?
So all the above. I'm saying kind of tongue in cheek. Helps to pick one thing to focus on. That's also a good tip in general.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking to grow in my career also. My area did used to be larger in the past. I would like it to be. So I currently have 3 teams. So it's 3 product development teams. It's about 30 to 45 people, depending on the day of the week. Earlier this year, I was looking after 6 teams in total, or technically 7 teams. So it goes up, it goes down. I also used to have a broader scope in the past. There's a lot of advantage to having a more narrower scope. yeah, it's I think it's good to have the experience with the different flavors and mixtures of size and size of scope, or size in terms of people and size in terms of like product scope. So for me, I want bigger, always more people, more scope. I really enjoy mentoring. And actually, I'm looking for more mentors, so more mentees. So if that is something that you're interested in, I would be honored if you contact me afterwards. It would be nice to catch up. But recently, I've just started consulting, and that's been really mind expanding. So that's been a very powerful lesson in terms of, like, as I was saying earlier, the relationship building and the networking and getting to understand other sides of, offering value and how to sell and how to put yourself out there in the world. And I'm doing that for the variety and the freedom, also security, having something of your own. And that's been wonderful. So that's where a lot of my effort is going at the moment.
Oh, awesome. Well, to the audience, if you want to chat to Ronen afterwards, he's given you the go ahead. So pop him a DM on LinkedIn and maybe you can get some leadership advice one-on-one. I'm keen to dive into audience questions. I can see that we do have a few. So let me pull them onto the screen. So Patrick asks, how can you manage or overcome presentation anxiety?
Oh, that's a good question. So I had in the milestone question, another milestone that I had was mentoring a person on public speaking, public speaking and networking. And they've gone on to speak at, big company conferences like our internal tech summit. They're speaking at the GraphQL summit later on this year. We would need to dive into, the specifics of the case. What is it that you're finding to be a challenge? This is a very most people say that they would rather they would rather I'm nervous to say it on the call, but they would rather die than speak publicly. So at a funeral, they would rather be in the casket than giving the speech. Yeah. So it's a very common challenge. I think that the number one tip that I have is preparation. So from playing in bands, I've played in many bands over the years. They say that the feeling of nervousness, a little bit is good, like a little bit of energy and positive stress is good. But if it's really debilitating anxiety, it might be pointing towards like there could be more preparation for the presentation. But yes, it's a common challenge, and there's lots of things that you can do. Most of all is start with, this is kind of like a cognitive behavioral, like psychology approach. Start in like a controlled environment, like giving a small speech at like your niece's birthday or something like that, and build up. So like controlled exposure to the fear can really help. I used to sing in a band, so it's like, and I can't sing at all. So it's like, how much worse can this be?
No, I love that. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the next one. Do you have any tech leadership resources you'd recommend that have helped you? Books, podcasts, courses?
Yes. So the first one that I would highly recommend, as a kind of, if you have like a blank slate at the moment, have a look at the Amazon leadership principles. I think like that is a good starting point. The important thing to know about it is that it doesn't tell you what to do. It tells you kind of the spectrum. So there will be one principle that, think customer first, and another one will be like, deliver results, and those might be in opposition. So it helps you understand kind of the trade-offs that you might need to think within. It gives you a framework to get started. Let me put it that way. Thinking Fast and Slow is a really fantastic book on how easy it is to get biased and the kind of glitches that humans have in their thinking. And the easiest one, and maybe the one that I can recommend to look at first, is How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's about talking to the audience, also how to disagree with people while maintaining the relationship. And there's some examples of really great speeches in there. Not many people know this, but How to Win Friends and Influence People is based on a course for engineers. So it's worth looking into.
Awesome. I read the book, but I don't know why I didn't click about that. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the next one. You mentioned management is a big part of your role in an upper level position. New managers often struggle to adjust to the new skill and task of managing because they haven't had training. What has your experience been with upskilling in management? Did you do it formally or through self-development?
For someone else, I assume this means for myself.
I think it's for yourself, yeah.
Yeah. So reading voraciously, diving into the material where you can find it. Hopefully there's some kind of playbook that maybe the company provides, or you can search. There are books that are structured like learning pathways. I think a good example of this kind of book is The Manager's Path, which, if nothing else, it helps you to understand, like, okay, you can start at step 1 and then move to step 2, and it just puts a plan and structure. Another resource that I used a lot was Harvard Manage Mentor. This was something that the company offered, and you basically can do short courses in management. When we moved to the pandemic, I did the GitLab remote management course. So there's lots of materials out there, maybe even too much. I think the most important thing is having like a plan, and most importantly, whatever you're learning, be sure that it's applicable so that you're learning while applying it. Otherwise, you end up, with a whole lot of knowledge which can fade away if it, you don't actually need it at the time, or it gets lost. Booking has a fantastic management training program, by the way. So Booking offers like a 6-month training course on management, the Managing People program, which is excellent.
Yeah. Awesome. I think we have time for one more question. So let's pull this one up. You mentioned the current restructuring, but when you are hiring, how do you approach hiring or bringing in A players onto your team? Do you primarily rely on your internal talent team? And could you share a bit about your hiring process?
Yes. So like in terms of Booking specifically, it's a fully fledged big tech hiring process with, there is an entire recruiting team. Although maybe it's interesting to talk about the time where we didn't have the recruiting team, like during the pandemic when lots of people were turning over. So I would be looking for leads basically everywhere, internal, on LinkedIn, posting about it, contacting people I knew in the past. You basically are trying to get like a quick screening, like, is this person interested? Could they be a fit for the role? Then when you bring them in, I speak with them first. So I want to I don't want to put them through an entire process if, like, okay, no, we're not, we don't click. And I can see it's not what I'm going to be needing in the area. So we'll speak, and then the first interview, which I would do typically, is engineering management fundamentals. So we'll run through like the person's experience, or if they lack the experience, their potential, like how would they approach these different situations. And then there's technical rounds. So sometimes I also do that, oftentimes no. Then there's, similar to Amazon, it ends up with like a hiring committee at the end, where we make a decision together based on all the evidence, and everyone kind of comes together and presents the pros and the cons. Everything is fairly formal. So when it was just me, I had my own criteria that I put down. When the recruiting process kicked back up formally, I was involved in that. And then there's a specific playbook that's there with what we're looking for. And so it's a very structured decision-making process with multiple touch points. We try and make it as quick and easy as possible, but there's a certain amount of due diligence that needs to happen in the hiring process.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for giving us some insight into that. We're going to end off with a quick rapid fire because it's literally 2 minutes left. But maybe quickly to dive in, what is one leadership myth you wish people would stop believing?
So leadership is a verb. I was discussing this earlier. It's something that you do. It's not something that you can do equally well every day. It gets better over time. Some days I'm a leader, some days I'm just a manager, some days I'm barely an employee. So you don't need anyone's permission to act like a leader, to support people, to bring forward great ideas, to chart a path forward. It's something that anyone can do. Yeah.
That's such a great way to end our session. Lead from a non-leadership role or managerial title. I love that. I think we can all agree, audience, Ronen just dropped a massive masterclass for us in terms of insights. And I think I've got a boatload of sticky notes and ideas to take into kind of the next few months to level myself up personally. So I'm sure the audience also loved the conversation. I do just also want to share that we have more of these sessions coming up. So there's a poll on the screen now if you wanted to hear from some of our other leaders that we have lined up coming over the next few weeks. Ronen, I just want to say a big thank you for sharing with so much clarity, candor, and just authenticity. I loved your stories, and we can't wait to watch your journey as your consultancy grows and kind of see where that goes. And yeah, thanks again to the audience for joining another AMA. I hope to see you all at the next one. Bye for now. Bye.